Hello and welcome to Flix and Chill with me, Luke. Today I have a very special guest on my show. Matt is here. So Matt, why don't you take it away and please introduce yourself?
Hey there, everyone. I'm Matt Borlenghi. I am an Italian American actor living here in Georgia, in the United States. And you're getting my rock star voice this morning because I'm a little under the weather. But I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to speak with
The
you, or
pleasure
to
was
you.
all mine, sir. Thank you so much for accepting. And that voice suits you. I'm just gonna say it suits you. Hopefully you're not gonna tap out. So,
Hopefully not. And it might work for a video game that I have to put tape together for
oh,
over the weekend. So we'll see.
can you
I
talk
like
about that,
video
or
game
is it
act.
like a secretive? Is there like a Can you talk about
Mm,
that video game? Like, what is the video game, or is there like a do you have some
no,
sort of NDA?
there's an NDA on it right now,
Mm,
but it is an Electronic Arts game, so it's a big
nice.
deal. Um, and I've done a video game before.
Hmm.
I played. In fact, most people who watch Cobra Kai
Hmm.
and the Sword Police Academy, the series, whatnot, that play overseas and what worldwide,
Hmm.
would know that my voice doesn't always sound like this. But the this the video game I did before was Mafia, the Definitive Edition,
Hmm.
which was a reboot, a reimagine, or just really a redo of the original Mafia, which was one of the first games that really introduced the whole chapters idea of video games, with the
Hmm.
storylines,
Hmm.
etc. So it was really cool doing that. Unfortunately, my character, Sergio Morello, uh, unfortunately, COVID hit at the same time that we had just finished doing all the motion capture and face scanning and all that. So the development team got whittled down drastically. People started having to work from home, and yet they still had the same delivery date to meet. So while it's my motion capture and my voice and everything in the game,
Hmm.
they didn't get the opportunity to change the old face from the original game version to my face. They
Ah,
did they did several characters, but they didn't get to mine, which was, that
that's a
was a
shame.
big drag. That
Hmm.
was a drag.
Funny enough, there's a very interesting connection because that original Mafia. Obviously, I've played it many a time because it is a Czech developed game. It's originally from I think it's still to this day. Well, maybe the Kingdom Deliverance now, well, the most successful Czech game of all time. And I grew up on that game and like with the Czech dubbing. So just to have you here, like you're doing the read up for the Ultimate Edition, it's kind of awesome.
So have you played the definitive edition then?
I have not. That's just because I'm no longer a gamer. I
Yeah,
basically, I watch a lot of movies and some TV shows, so there's only enough hours in a day, especially when, I have a proper day job. This is just a hobby of mine.
got it. Got it. Well, let's call this your professional hobby. It's not just a hobby.
Okay, think you're kind, thank you. But yeah, so like, but I did grow up on that game, and I had to. I've gone through the first one, the very, before any modifications, all how it came out the first time. I must have gone through that game about genuinely like 5 6 times, so I know it quite well. It's just so great, and it was just like that and Grand Theft Auto 3, like GTA 3, were the first ones also like first person, like or third person with like missions. Because like
Right.
GTA 2 was still like the God view where the car was kind of like 2D kind of, and you
Yeah.
were like driving around, but you didn't really see much. And then GTA 3 came out, and then Mafia came out, and people were like, oh, we can actually do this. It's an open world. What is this? This is madness.
Yeah, and when you say, you haven't had a chance to play like the revisions,
Mm.
it's not a revision. It's really, we're incredibly faithful to the
No, yeah.
original game, just fresher take on it, fresher graphics, pressure actors.
hmm
Um,
No, my apology. I should have said maybe more polished because I know
yeah,
it's the
yeah,
story and everything is the same. Obviously, the people in charge of
exactly.
those are like very mindful and respectful of the original game. It's just more polished to because obviously that came out 2000 2001. A lot of things have changed like in terms of how games look like now to
Yeah.
20 almost 25 years ago. It's insane the amount of progress we had in that field.
And I believe we came out in 20, end of 21,
hmm
maybe something like that. But
hmm
it looked fantastic. I was very and to see to remember to see it and remember, yes, that's what I did with my hand. That's
hmm
amazing that it really was a bummer that COVID prevented using my face capture because or face scanning because I have teenage kids
hmm
and I really wanted my boys to be able to say, "Holy crap,
Yeah.
that's my fucking dad," but they know my voice and
hmm
so anyway,
No,
moving on.
no, 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 no. I would like to stay here because it is actually very fucking cool. I'll say, that would have been very cool. How do you go about it? Because I know basically, as you pointed out, so you did a motion capture for it, right? And I know
Mhm.
how that works. So you're wearing a fancy, quote unquote, fancy suit with a lot of dots, and they just basically
Yes.
they have multiple cameras from every angle, and those cameras like read your position at any given point, and they just transfer it to the game. So how did you? Okay, let me ask you a better question. How did you land with that job? Like, how did you? What made you say yes to that job?
To be honest, I don't even, I'm not sure I remember. I think I vaguely do because I just found my original
hmm
pages. I was, Cobra Kai was just becoming popular.
hmm
And uh, my agent said, yeah, have you ever done a video game? I said, no. And they said, well, got a call and, they were wondering, it's a redo of the game Mafia.
hmm
And I was like, shh, shh, you had me at Mafia.
hmm
So I went ahead and, put on tape
hmm
what my ideas for Sergio Morello were.
hmm
And next thing you know, I was on an airplane. I mean, it was that simple. And I'll tell you what, I would almost, I've said it before, I'll say it with you. I
hmm
would almost retire from on-camera acting and do video game acting only. I love it. I'm not crazy about the cat suit idea and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like it takes away a lot of your mystery, if you know what I mean.
hmm hmm
So, but you have, if you don't have solid calves, the cat suit's gonna let everyone know that, you know what I mean? Um, but
hmm
yes, you have all these sensors all over your body
hmm
and hundreds of cameras everywhere. It's shocking how technologically overwhelmed I was just looking at everything.
hmm
I mean, I'm still the guy who has to look up, my notes that I finally wrote. I'm the guy who has to still look up my notes and see how do I do a screen grab on my computer.
Yeah, yeah.
So looking at all these uh, monitors and wavelengths and everything that they had going on,
hmm
and being able to show us what we just did, saying, okay, so look at this, and we need you just, maybe 1 foot to your right so that you're not blocking this. And I'm looking at this, this animated version of me. It's incredible.
hmm
It's incredible, but so much fun. And then the facial scan, I mean, that was so many little tiny dots all over my face
Yeah.
and having to imitate the most simple move, facial moves like having to be like,
hmm hmm Yeah.
you know, any little thing. And I mean, I was that alone was just, a couple of hours of doing little moves that they could. incorporate and then articulate.
Yeah, insert into the game and yeah, with your face, which
Yeah.
at the end of the day did not happen, but like you still did the work. They just didn't have enough material to incorporate you, I'm guessing.
They didn't know. They had all the material they needed. They just didn't have the workforce
Ah, I
because
see.
COVID hit. Co
Oh,
co Yeah, COVID hit, and everything locked down in March 2003. What was 220? March
2020.
2020,
Yep.
and I had done all the work just before that.
Mm-hmm.
And so their workforce got shrunk down. People were working from home. And as I said, they still had the same deadline to meet to release the
Mm,
game. So some things like incorporating my face capture and a couple of, a few other actors, they weren't able to incorporate the face capture,
mm-hmm.
but everything else came together fine.
No, that's good. So you answered already a question I was gonna ask, whether you actually had a good time, and you said you loved it. So
Love it.
that's that's great to hear. So I'll ask you a different question. Given you've been an actor, a working actor, your entire adult life, from what I can see, and now doing this motion capture for this video game, and you loved it. What in your eyes is the obviously minus the cat suit, the very tight cat suit you already alluded to. Is there any other difference as far as your performance goes?
Yes, there is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be quite a bit more technical. And when they say, I mean, everything has to be agreed upon
Mm-hmm.
in advance. So if a line reads a certain way, if it's not sounding true in my head, I mean, it has to be agreed upon well in advance that it's going to be tweaked to this or
Mm-hmm.
to that, or because within the construct of the process, the game, everything has to be very precise. So there's no room for, on the fly improvisation, for
Yep.
example, whereas, which, is very much the same like sitcom work. It's very structured, between takes, the writers will try different jokes and whatnot, but they want to hear exactly what they wrote.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you changing the line halfway through a take.
Yeah.
And then if it bombs or doesn't get the laugh, then a take has been ruined, whereas single camera shows, like the TV pilot I just wrapped on a couple of months ago,
Mm-hmm.
uh, are there's a lot more room. I was able to show up and say, hey, I want to really try to establish the relationship between my character and his a little more, give an idea of why they're still friends all after all these years. So I thought about this line
Mm-hmm.
as I'm coming, as I'm entering the scene. Um, what do you think? And oh yeah, do that. That's funny.
Yeah.
So that would be the biggest thing is video game is much more structured, much more by the numbers and literally by the letters.
Yeah. Yeah. So no room for improv whatsoever.
Not unless you approach hours or days in advance, knowing that Thursday you're going to be shooting this section,
Mm-hmm.
and right now it's Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
then you'd really have to get on the phone and say, hey, look, in Thursday's stuff, what do you think of this? Let me check with the team because ultimately, they have a very, very clear and concise vision of
Mm-hmm.
what they are bringing to the screen. With regular acting, sometimes you don't know exactly what you have a vision, but as a director or writer, you're also leaning on the actors to round that out a little bit more or bring it to life.
Yeah.
Um, but really, like I was saying, with video games, they have a very clear vision, and
Mm-hmm.
if you fit that vision, great.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to change the vision to fit you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Okay, so that's yeah, that's fascinating. So let's talk about more. Let's talk a bit more about you because yeah, if I correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand it, and I did some reading about you. So you have been a working actor ever since really your teenage to young adult years, or from your teenage to young adult years, correct?
Yes, with using the definition of working actor loosely, because when I still had a teen at the end of on the rear side of my age,
Hmm.
uh, it was very forgettable work
Hmm.
situation,
Hmm.
but unfortunately not forgettable enough because IMDb just won't get rid of a certain movie. I think I was 18,
Hmm.
and my first real, anything, and it was a non-union little horror film
Hmm.
called Cannibal Hookers.
All right.
Yeah, that I have been asking. I've been trying to get that removed from IMDb, but I think I'm old enough now to just be able to. I don't have to apologize for it. It was my first foray
Yeah.
into, and I got killed on screen by a bunch of ladies of the night wearing lingerie and making me very bloody. So I mean, now it's a laugh. When I was younger, I was embarrassed by it.
I was gonna say, like, I don't think, and is anybody asking you to apologize for anything? I don't think so. And we all have to start somewhere, isn't it? It's not like, you're gonna get to work with Spielberg on your day one. It rarely
No,
happens. So like even the best of the best, like Matthew McConaughey was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, I believe, one of his first movies. Leonardo DiCaprio was like in a Critters 3. Again, if you go back even to the Giants, they all started with like movies of questionable quality, let's say. I know
well,
for example the filmmaker Jonathan Demme, the guy who
sure.
directed Silence of the Lambs. If you go back to his career early in the 70s, you will see some black exploitation movies, some Caged Heat, which is a prison slash erotic movie, and you're like, what? Wait, really? Him? Yes, he did. He co-wrote some screenplays on some of these movies. He directed one or two movies like that. You gotta start someplace, you know.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, most of what you just mentioned
Mhm.
would look like Oscar winners compared to Cannibal Hookers.
See, this is making me even more intrigued to actually look it up and watch it. I'm just gonna say this.
Yeah, yeah, and the funny thing is, I don't even remember. Like, I was able to find it
Hmm.
online somehow and scan through it, and half the scenes, most of it, I don't even remember having
Hmm.
filmed. It was a glaring watching it because just a quick uh, what's the word memory or trivia.
Hmm.
Quick trivia thing. I did not go up for anything or want to audition for anything
Hmm.
until I knew what everything on a set was and, who people were.
Hmm.
So I did a lot of background acting for about 2 years,
Okay.
just finding any background jobs I could through the available publications at the time, like
Hmm.
Backstage and whatnot, Hollywood Reporter, everything when you had paper.
Hmm.
And so I thought, okay, well, it was through one of those like Backpage or Backstage magazine, whatever ads that I found this Cannibal Hookers. It had a
Hmm.
different name at the time. Had something to do with, a vampire, and vampires are fucking cool,
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, yeah, I'm down. I'll go do a vampire movie. Why not? I'll get
Hmm.
my feet wet. Uh, Ended up getting everything wet with blood, but that's another thing.
Hmm.
So I thought because now I'm pretty technically proficient and I know who this person is and what that piece of equipment is, and if I hear someone say, "Hey Tony, hand me that C stand," I could say, "Oh, I got you." Well, number
Hmm.
one, I would have gotten yelled at because I'm not union. Well, but then again, no one on that crew was. But the point is, I saw my scenes in that movie because I'd never seen it before,
Hmm.
honestly.
Okay.
And I saw it was just recently in the last few months that for some reason I was like, yeah, is that even available for people to see?
Hmm.
And to my horror, it is. And it was a real wake-up call on how misguided I was at the time that maybe I should have spent more time worrying about my acting than worrying about what a C stand is on set because it
Hmm.
was pretty cringe worthy.
But then
But
it's
you have to
it's a
start.
exactly, and it's part of growing up, isn't it? It's like if I learn if I go back to when I was 18, I was I was a total dumbass, and I thought I do know better, but I didn't, and I can only do view it backwards now as a 30-something-year-old man. We're like, oh yeah, I used to be very dumb, and and maybe 10 years from now I'll look at myself and be like, God damn it, I used to be very dumb. So it's that kind of progression, isn't it? It's just like, you don't know what you don't know until much later. It's just like you look back, why did I do that? That was dumb, but hey, it happened and it actually helped me maybe in one way or another. So did you always know you wanted to be an actor? Or is there something that drew you to, or it's like, as you say, you wanted to learn everything about a movie set?
I did know I wanted to be an actor when I
Okay.
was 7 years old.
Nice. So
And
what was it? What would like spark that?
my parents had an Italian, we're Italian American. They
Hmm.
had a friend, an Italian director. And I couldn't tell you his name
Hmm.
anymore. It's been too long, but he had a vision. He was at my parents' house and he had a vision. He said, Matteo, I'm going to make a cowboy movie and
Hmm.
you're going to be my cowboy
Hmm.
and you're going to be in the horse on the pony in the sunset and we make this it's beautiful and then he passed away and it never happened and I
Hmm.
was left with that thought of literally being the cowboy riding off into the sunset
Hmm.
and I have yet to play the role in it could be any medium. It doesn't have to be a Western movie. It
Yeah.
can be anything. Just put me on a fucking horse and let me ride off into the sunset just to bring it around because I'm 57 now
Hmm.
and that's literally the anniversary of the dream starting of riding a horse off into the sunset on film.
Hmm. Well, again, maybe now if since you are doing video games and motion capture, there might be something coming up for like Red Dead Redemption or one of those games. Hey,
You never know. You
you know,
never know.
no, that's awesome. So like, and obviously you've been through many movie sets. You've had roles on Married with Children. You even appeared in one in Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and obviously Cobra Kai. So let me ask you this. Is there a set for a movie, doesn't matter whether or a TV show, doesn't matter how successful that project was or not, where you had the most fun in your professional life? And if so, what made that set so fun?
I would say one of the sets that was very fun was the Jeff Foxworthy show, which
Hmm.
was a TV series. Um, because there we did have a lot of opportunity to just, mess with each other.
Hmm.
And during breaks between filming, Jeff and I would, we'd be sitting in a diner booth.
Hmm.
Uh, and just singing Bob Seger songs like, Turn the Page.
Yeah.
Um, Police Academy, the series
Hmm.
was cool because it was you had Joe Flaherty, Michael with the noises, Mike,
Michael
what's his
Winslow.
last?
Winslow.
Mike Winslow, yes.
Yep. Yep.
And Tony Longo, who's also passed away.
Hmm.
Big Luke. That was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Although it was very tough working conditions at the time,
Hmm.
um, behind the scenes and whatnot. But it was that's one show that I do, I mean, listen, I have no regrets. I don't have any woulda, coulda, shouldas
Hmm.
because every decision I've ever made adds up to the sum of me as a person.
Hmm.
And if I hadn't quit this show, or if I hadn't left that show, or whatnot, I don't have my wife and my kids today.
Hmm.
Everything is different. So I don't have those regrets saying, I'm so dumb, I should have done that. Does part of me say, yeah, I just want you to make sure that you remember the fact that you walked away from millions of dollars. So
Hmm.
just keep that in the back of your mind somewhere so you don't do that again. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't have the type of regrets that um, a lot of people unfortunately carry with them.
Hmm. Hmm. So yeah,
Um,
like you're just going with the flow realistically, like basically like I've done what I've done in my life. I'm ready for more, and I'm not gonna
yeah.
look back because there's really no point.
One of the movies that I did do because I've had a good run of movies too, just maybe not
Hmm.
you know big known movies. Like one was The Crew, and that was back in 2001 or two or something like that. But it was with Burt Reynolds, Richard Dreyfuss, Dan Hedaya, Seymour Cassell, and they were a group of old best friends in a retirement home that used to be, you know,
Hmm.
mobsters.
Yeah.
And uh, Burt Reynolds, I played the young version of Burt Reynolds' character.
Nice.
And his character name was Joey Bats, so I was young Joey Bats,
Hmm.
and that was a lot of fun because, it was like I'm playing an icon's, the younger version of a film icon right now.
Hmm.
This is so cool. And I actually got to meet him. I didn't meet him during that time, but then I met him uh, I met him just before or after when I was doing a play, and he came up to me after the play, and he said, if my friend Richard Bobby Blake were still alive, if he saw you doing this, he'd kick your effing ass because you could do anything he ever did and do it better. And I was like, wait, you're Burt Reynolds telling me you enjoyed my performance and that you think I could do anything that your good buddy could do and better.
Hmm.
That's a big W in my win column. Thank you.
That must have felt pretty fucking great, I bet.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
No, that's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, so you mentioned that I've done a lot of TV, but not much film. That was a Disney Touchstone Pictures. That was supposed to be like the big weekend comedy film, and unfortunately, it came up against a J-Lo, a Jennifer Lopez movie that was coming out the same weekend. And at the
Hmm.
time, she was very hot in the movies, and
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, a lot of people, I don't even remember that was a forgettable movie,
Hmm.
but more people went to see that than they did The Crew, because, you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
I'm not sure there was a way to market The Crew as a bunch of aging mobsters trying to find their high life again that
Hmm.
was going to compete with the heat that J-Lo had going at the time, you know.
It'd be tough. It'd be very tough, yes.
But it's a fun movie. That's a movie that you should find in
I need
you
to check
know.
it out. No, yeah, I definitely. It sounds awesome. I'm always down for with the Burt Reynolds and Dan Hedaya, all those guys. And now speaking to you, obviously I'll be looking out for the young version of Burt Reynolds. So yeah, no, thanks for the recommendation. That it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, that movie I did see, and that movie I enjoyed.
Nice.
I don't see everything
Of
that
course,
I do.
you're busy making, TV shows and movies. So hey, like, you don't have that much time, I would imagine.
There are certain things, to be honest, that if I'm not sure that I brought it, you know what I mean? If I'm
Mhm.
not sure that I like this movie that for Lifetime that we just did, that just came out in February. Uh, do you remember Lisa and the Cult Jam, the band from the 80s?
I don't think I ever heard of them. I'm sorry.
Can you
I
feel
might.
the beat inside my heart? Da 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 da.
Okay.
No.
Oh,
Okay, well,
that. Yeah, 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 yeah. I know the song. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm all cried out over you. Okay, so they were a big band, and we just did,
Mm-hmm.
a true story movie about them, and it's done very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, I had a lot of fun on that film, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fun because I had a lot of room. I was talking with Lisa Velez, who's the original Lisa, and Tony Minaj, who's the original Tony in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I was able to pick their brains and say, what were these moments like? Because I played the record label executive who discovered them, put them on the map,
Mm-hmm.
but also mistreated them to a good degree.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to, some of as it was written, the language was a little fluffy, for lack of a better word. Like the way I saw this guy, he's not the guy who's going to say, "Oh, darling,
Mm-hmm.
darling, do that." That's not me. I just don't think there's a masculine way to say darling. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it said in a way I was like, "Oh yeah, he nailed that."
Okay.
So, um, uh, being able to add or switch dialogue around and make it more, and also make it more fun. Instead of saying, "Oh, I almost got assaulted by a group of hooligans outside."
Mm-hmm.
Please, we're in New York. I'm a New Yorker. I'm not gonna be worried about being assaulted by hooligans.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to just walk in and like be punching and saying I almost had to scrap with a bunch of teenagers outside.
Mm.
Just really have fun with it and, not embellish, but really
Like add
color
the
up.
authenticity to it.
The soup is already there. Now let's
Yes.
just add a few more different flavors.
Yeah, like seasoning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I got you. So, what is there some sort of a project or a role that if you could choose, you would do it in a heartbeat? Is there something that's your like a dream project or a role, or maybe a director you would love to work with?
As far as directors, I mean, who wouldn't love to work with Quentin Tarantino just for the all out crazy aspect of it, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
That would be wonderful, Robert Zemeckis, like,
Hmm.
listen, Forrest Gump is the perfect film.
All right.
It's the perfect film.
Hmm.
The way they use history and intertwine the story and just, I mean, there's something for everyone
Hmm.
in Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Fantasy, dream, humor, heartbreak, the scope of which it's presented, going from, Vietnam War to, sitting on a bus stop,
Hmm.
you know, it's the perfect film. And Robert Zemeckis, I mean, that would be a dream director
Hmm.
also to work with.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
Quentin Zemeckis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds good. Any, is there, besides obviously your cowboy riding off to the sunset kind of a role, is there any particular role you've always wished to portray?
there are a couple picks I have, but I think they've been done as perfectly as
Hmm.
they could be.
Hmm.
Like Streetcar Named Desire.
I mean, Marlon Brando, yeah, yeah.
Oh, what am I going to bring
Hmm.
that he didn't,
Hmm.
as the street, slang says, what am I going to bring that he hadn't done brought? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
what could I bring that he didn't? I mean,
Hmm.
just the way he did things in that film, because for like you're familiar with the movie.
Of course, yes, I've seen it.
I
Yeah,
don't know how many times you've seen it. I don't know,
just the once so
okay.
far.
So there's one of the many brilliant moments in it
Hmm.
he's trying to eat and they piss him off at this. She pisses him off,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
All he's trying to do is just eat his food. And you know, in the script, it was written he throws the plate against the wall,
Hmm.
right? You could envision 99 out of 100 people grabbing their plate and flinging it against the wall to show how angry they are.
Hmm.
What did he do? He mashed his hand into his food. Do you remember this? He mashed his hand into his food on the plate, like crushing, what was there, and then just slid the plate off the
Hmm.
wall, the table into the wall.
Hmm.
So it was a two a 1-2 punch. It was that frustration, like, fuck, can I just eat my fucking food? Boom,
Yeah, yeah.
it was brilliant.
Hmm.
And I never forgot that. And I'm talking about I saw that movie years ago.
Hmm.
I never forgot that because it wasn't just he flings the plate against the wall. He let everything he was feeling come out when he mashed his hand into his food and then sent the plate.
Yeah.
So, you know, what can you do better than that?
That's why he was one of the greats, isn't it? Like, especially in the 50s, 60s, early 70s, like, there was no one better than Brando for a while. At least it seemed like,
Yeah,
there was, no beating this guy as far as like acting goes.
yeah, he is something else. And a friend of mine, Billy Zane,
Hmm.
is just completed a project playing Brando. And that's
Ooh.
something that should have happened forever ago because Billy looks remarkably like Brando.
Hmm. Hmm. I can see it.
Um,
Okay. That's gonna be
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Anyway, so Streetcar Named Desire. I mean, yes, would you love to do it?
Hmm.
Yes. Would you risk touching that? No. Alec Baldwin, I think, got in over his head trying to
Mm,
take that on.
I see. Was there a remake with him, or did he portray it on like a Broadway or something?
They filmed something. I think they filmed like a stage production, so it was kind of a
Hmm.
cross,
I see.
a hybrid, as it
Hmm.
were.
Hmm.
Rather than, shoot a frame by frame remake of the movie, they filmed like a live production of it.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, I'll be honest. But Alec Baldwin, I do like the guy. I do like him as an actor.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
done a lot of good stuff.
100%. And
Hunt for Red October,
yeah.
fantastic movie.
No, he's been popular for at least 4 decades, and you don't get popular for that long by an accident. You might have a few lucky years, and then it's gonna what happens is most people forget. But if you're popular for that long, it's not an accident. It's not a coincidence, is it?
No, he's a talented guy. It's
Mhm.
just, certain things we as actors should leave
Mhm.
left alone.
That could be like a motto for like a modern day Hollywood thing, to a point. It's not just actors. It's
I mean, remake after remake after reimagining. It's
hmm. Hmm.
You know, definitely there are things that you can make better in terms of quality
Yep.
and in terms of, the way it's shot and face it, the way it's acted in a lot of cases.
Hmm.
But definitely, instead of going after IPs and remakes, let's try to have a little bit more.
Hmm.
Hollywood unfortunately is gone as Hollywood was. I mean,
Hmm.
once you had the corporations, making the final decisions,
Hmm.
you weren't going to have the influx of original ideas and whatnot. I mean, that's what's so impressive about Anora
Hmm.
winning Best Film is that, small budget, and it was like really thumbing things in people's, in the big institutions' face, like, see, if you just
Hmm.
believe,
Yep.
you know. Uh, Whereas that other movie, that the Demi Moore movie,
Mm.
that was almost unwatchable.
Oh, The
Uh,
Substance.
yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
not a
it
fan.
was it was almost unwatchable for me and my wife. We were like, "What is this?" Um,
Interesting.
Listen,
Hmm.
I know why it became a darling,
Hmm.
because it deals with ageism in Hollywood. And Demi did a nice job,
Hmm.
playing, an actress who is losing it because, she wants to still feel relevant and beautiful and all that.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it was a schlock gore fest. You know, it was, and listen, I'm not a prude by
Hmm.
any means. I have nothing against, seeing naked women, but it was just, there's so much nudity. And how are you nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress if the younger version of you in the movie isn't nominated? Because the younger version I think, had even more screen time,
Hmm.
So, it's just, God bless them that they got this movie done and got that much attention. And Demi had a good run, but I think it would have been criminal for her to actually win the Academy Award.
Ooh,
You know,
interesting. Interesting.
give
Okay.
her the critics' choices and whatnot. It's a great, not comeback,
Hmm.
story, but it's a great feel good story.
Hmm.
But the Academy Award is supposed to be reserved for something great. And, that's just my humble. I mean, as someone who
Hmm.
from 7 years old, and, I've held an Academy Award because a friend of mine's dad, uh, and Gene Kirkwood won the Academy Award for Rocky. He produced Rocky. And
Nice.
so in his living room, I've held the Oscar for Rocky.
Hmm.
For someone who's dreamt of an Oscar
Hmm.
since, for 50 years now, I hold it in a different light
Hmm.
than a movie like Substance.
That's see, this is where we can agree to disagree because I loved The Substance, but I hear what he's saying. I I feel like there's a lot more to it than just that. And I'll say this. The most common critique I've heard of that movie is kind of what you're talking about. It's very in your face about everything. I think that's kind of the point. But also, it's kind of almost the same movie as Anora in a way where both are very indie movies. Both only cost like about, I think The Substance also cost about 10 million, if that. So both are just like a very tiny movies by directors. Coralie Farge is this is only her second movie, and yeah, I was happy that it put her on a map. And again, like as you said, Demi, it's not a comeback. She's never gone away, but I think I hope that will kind of allow her to return into the quote unquote big leagues where she belongs because she still has it, and
Yeah.
hopefully one
Listen,
day, you know.
yeah, I have always been a Demi fan
Mhm.
from Saint Elmo's Fire to even to Ghost. I mean,
Yep.
and and even now she plays a character on a TV series that I really enjoy,
Hmm.
called Landman on Paramount Plus.
Mm.
It's Billy Bob Thornton
Yeah.
show,
Hmm.
which is kind of weird because I get a lot of comments that I should be playing Billy Bob's brother.
You do
I've
kind
heard
of
that.
look like a mix of Billy Bob, and I'm thinking also, I just slipped up on his name, the Timothy Olyphant. Like you look like a mix of Billy Bob and Timothy Olyphant. I was like, if somehow those two guys could have a baby, I feel like that would be you. In the
That's funny.
nicest way possible because both of them are very attractive men, and I'm like, and they have their fan base from ages like 18 to ages like 70. So
Right.
I know they are very popular with the women crowd mainly because they are
Yeah.
good and attractive men.
I will take that all day, a cross
Hmm.
between Billy Bob and Timothy. I think it would be fun to play the middle brother
Yes.
of Billy Bob, the oldest brother, then me, and then Timothy.
Hmm.
And so that you see that like, they got better looking as they got more practice. The youngest one was, finally the
Hmm.
one that, okay, we finally got it right with Timothy.
Yes. No, it's
Um,
yeah, it's honestly, but no, yeah, it's fascinating, and it's like modern day Hollywood is definitely. I think there are still great things to be made, but I think they are taking less and less of risks, like the big studios, and they forget how these movies became a franchise. Is they took on a risk on, who would have thought Fast and Furious, the this racing movie would end up being having 12 more sequels, earning so much in the box office, and it evolved from something now to something completely different. But unless they take much more risks, they'll never get another successful franchise.
yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Speaking of old Hollywood,
Hmm.
you see that?
Yep. I can see. Yeah, nice. Rick, Rick's Cafe. Yep. I'm guessing that's
Yeah.
this is only an audio podcast, so I'm just gonna describe it. It looks like a poster from maybe a movie called Casablanca.
It is. It is.
Hmm.
It's Casablanca, the great Humphrey Bogart.
Yep. 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 A great movie. That's
He
it.
uh he kind of invented subtle cool, you know?
He was one of the most coolest guys and actors of his era, 100%. Like how nowadays many we still revere like somebody like George Clooney as like the epitome of like cool, right? Like there's
Yeah.
this kind of like charisma that like draws you into those people. Humphrey Bogart was that for like the 40s, 50s. It's just like
Yeah.
especially like something like Casablanca, something like Maltese Falcon. Just put on the fedora before the fedoras were associated with people who were kind of weird, when they were still acceptable to wear. And yeah, there was nobody cooler than than him.
I'll still rock a fedora every once in a while. Fedoras are just fucking cool.
They
Um,
are. I think you can pull it off, sir. I think, younger guys who wear fedoras, there is a certain stereotype about those people. And, if you go online, you will know exactly what I mean. You can, I think, pull it off. If I put on fedora, people will be like, "Oh no, is he one of them guys? Let's not talk to him. Let's avoid him." Let's
uh, are you talking about like hipsters and whatnot?
No, no, like incels and like
Oh,
basically those kind of like oh, I hate women and like
right.
there is like a very unfortunate stereotypes now with fedoras. If you're
Hmm.
young, you wear that, many clock you, especially many women clock you and like, oh, is he one of them? So like
Right,
you can rock it, like you can rock fedora, and I think you should be safe. If I put on a fedora, I think many would judge me or would think, "Hey, he's probably one of them guys. Let's not let's go around him like in in a circle."
I got you. I got you. You know what? I would like to circle back to Demi
Tell me.
and Substance
Hmm.
for a second because it was, almost unwatchable because, I was still trying to figure out how, all right, so we're in the 80s if this exercise show is supposed to be the hottest thing on the planet
Hmm.
because, I think, to be honest, to give it, before I officially
Hmm.
publicly declare it to be, in my opinion, one of the worst films of all time,
Wow.
I think I think I need to watch it again
Hmm.
with a fresh set of eyes because the message will still be the same. I get the message,
Yes.
but watching the Oscars when they showed the different actors' clips.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there was, as they introduced Demi as a nominee, and she was doing this thing where she was, with the makeup, and she was furiously, frantic and trying to get, do the makeup right and everything.
Hmm.
You know, I didn't remember that moment as sharply from when I watched the movie.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like seeing it on the Academy Awards, just that little moment,
Hmm.
I had the thought, you know what? To be fair, maybe when I was watching the movie, I was so busy saying to myself, what the fuck is this? And did not have my eyes open to
Hmm.
powerful little moments like that,
Hmm.
you know? So it's entirely possible. And, you know, I should watch it again because you never know, you know, what's going to come down the road. And, you know,
Hmm.
for all I know, I will end up meeting the director and realizing that she's an absolute visionary and brilliant director.
Hmm.
Who knows?
Hmm.
Maybe I'll have an opportunity to work with Demi at
Hopefully.
some point. And I would like to, because listen, I'm a meat and potatoes guy. I'm
Hmm.
very straightforward and honest.
Hmm.
And I would like to watch it again and see maybe what so many others have seen in
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
so that I don't find myself, you know, sitting with the director and uh, her saying, "So what did you think of the substance?" And me having to be like,
Yeah, yeah. No,
well,
I get you. Like
what
I
I
was
really want to say is, you know,
very
I
good. I really
like to be,
liked it. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I think I owe it another view
Hmm.
and with a fresh set of eyes. And I guess expose myself to all that nudity again. I mean,
You gotta take
gosh,
one for the team, I guess. Yeah.
oh yeah. In the name of art and science, I will watch that movie again.
For all it's worth, I can maybe give you some, not pointers, but like the way why I loved it. I was fortunate enough to see it in a cinemas back in like September. I think September, October it came out here in the UK. So it was long before any like Oscar talk were happening, and I was blown away just because. So firstly, it's a female director, and I really am now seeing her the first feature debut, but like the second movie for me, Revenge. It was also great, by the way. I admire that how she approaches sexuality, like women's sexuality, but she allows every woman to be sexy, and yet it doesn't feel like, doesn't feel like it's out of place. It still like lingers on many women, on many show, like, in substance. Margaret Qualley, that's, the younger than me. Her
That's
butt
her
is the
name.
start of, yeah, and she was great. And her butt is a is a star of that show for many shots, but it's on purpose, because like I read someplace in a movie that goes full body horror, the most disgusting scene is, what's his name, eating a shrimp. What's the actor's name?
I don't
Dennis
Quaid.
Quaid.
Dennis.
Dennis Quaid. Like, in a movie where you have a lot of body horror and a lot of disturbing scenes, the fact that many people hated that scene of him just eating the shrimp after shrimp whilst he's judging Demi Moore, who's still objectively very good looking woman, and he's judging her and he's telling her, okay, okay, sweetheart, you had your years, now it's time to say goodbye, we need somebody younger, and they bring
Yeah,
her, Margaret Qualley. And the scene you're talking about, Demi, that was her getting ready for a date. She was finally asked out by this guy who she also fancied.
yeah,
And I think that scene alone earned her the Oscar nomination, because like the moment where she is almost done and she knows she needs to get the fuck out now of her
yeah.
apartment, to get to that date.
And it
And
was
then she
so
starts to
frustrating.
yeah, and she
Yeah,
starts to question herself. She's like, "Oh, am I pretty enough?" And like a bit about it, like she does it with there is no dialogue, if I remember correctly. And I only seen it once in a cinema. I do want to rewatch it. And there's no dialogue in that scene. She just looks at her, and you see the pain, and you see all the voices back in her head. She's also staring at the big billboard of Margaret Qualley, who replaced her. and she
Yeah.
compares herself to that young, young girl who she's never be as young, as fit, as pretty as her in her head, right?
Yeah.
And then she just gets frustrated and flustered with herself and goes deep down into that hole where ultimately what happens of her, it's that like Frankenstein monster. It's just that
Yeah.
like, and I love, and again, like I am a person who appreciates good body horror movie, and but again, that's the thing, right? I totally understand if that's not your cup of tea, because many people I know and I talk movies about, that wasn't their cup of tea. They don't like that. Fine, that's fine. I understand that. Like it's not gonna be everybody's cup of tea. I was just so happy that it got some sort of recognition, and I hope Coralie Farge, the director, will go and make anything she wants, and she will get the funding because I think we need not only women directors, but we need directors with unique visions that are like, hey, I have this crazy fucked up idea. It might work, it might not work, but let's give it a shot. And I would
Yeah.
much rather see that than a movie that's like 200 million and we've already seen everything and you know everything that's gonna happen the next scene and it ends and you're like, yeah, it's fine. Substance, as
It-
you say, you have an opposite reaction of me. You hated it. I loved it. But I totally
but
understand why. Like, I totally get it.
again, first of all, I didn't see it on a big screen. I saw
Ah.
it,
Hmm.
I saw it on a 50-inch TV screen, but it's not the same.
No, yeah.
Um, and again, I say I owe it in all fairness, not just to the movie and those involved, but to myself as an active participant in this
Hmm.
industry.
Yeah.
Uh, I owe I owe myself and the movie another view
Hmm.
because there are things, and yeah, I agree with you. That was the most disgusting moment of the film was the close up of his mouth and
Yep.
these shrimp and
Yep. Yeah. The
you know
noise. Yep.
yeah, the noise and everything. And I think that was one of the things that I reacted so, whole body
Hmm.
experience to.
Hmm.
It was like, what am I watching? And I wasn't, I wasn't diving into it as much and seeing that like that the symbolism
Hmm.
as much, as
Hmm.
disgusting as this man is, and he's berating a wonderful looking woman
Hmm.
who's in my age group.
Hmm.
Well, she's older than I am, but it didn't land as hard for me,
Hmm.
that dichotomy of the symbolism.
Yep.
Um, so I do want to watch it again, and I told that to my wife. I said, I kind of want to watch it again, and she rolled her eyes like, you just want to see the girl naked again. I'm like, no, no, it. Even I thought it was too much nudity,
Hmm.
but just the to view it in a different way, and like I said, there were a lot of very interesting things about it.
Hmm.
There was just so much of certain things. And,
Yes.
also, I mean, it was hard for me to just, what's it called? Suspended reality,
Suspend belief. Yeah. Yeah. Suspended belief. Yeah.
of how she's going to build this secret chamber all by herself,
That
the
was
walls,
definitely. Yeah. That was
floor.
definitely. Yeah.
It was like, come on. At least, bring a fucking contractor in and, say, yeah, I'm thinking all I need you to do is build this door for me
Hmm.
because I'm gonna end up, making it like my personal little Zen garden or whatever. So I just really need you to build a door for me. Then I would have been okay with that.
I
But
think that scene was there just to let you know that, if a woman gets, sets her mind on something, she will achieve it. I think that
yeah,
was there.
girl power. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
No, like no, there was a funny thing of about that movie. Like halfway through when she's building, and I'm like, did she just turn into Bob the Builder? Oh, she did. Okay, cool. Next scene.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, maybe, and like I said, I'm a simple man, fairly, So
Hmm.
maybe I let that bother me enough that I was like, this is so fucking stupid that she's able to build her own secret chamber
Hmm.
like this without ever, maybe never having used a screwdriver before. All
Yeah,
right, they lost me.
yeah, yeah.
Because I'm a tools guy, I built a Harley Davidson. I, you
Wow.
know, I I'm a biker. I mean, I know I don't
Hmm.
fit a lot of people's, idea of what a biker looks like, but I mean, I've been on two wheels since I was 14 years old,
No, I
and
would have believed the biker part. Like I totally. But to say, oh, by the way, I've built my own
yeah,
Harley Davidson. That's I'm like, holy shit! I don't know many people who've built their own bikes like that. Respect.
yeah. Well, yeah, it was. I took. Well, I found it completely, in a state of complete utter disrepair and
Hmm.
rusted through with weeds growing through it and everything in a backyard.
Hmm. Hmm.
And spent the first year taking it apart
Hmm.
and figuring out what needed to be replaced, what needed to be thrown away, what needed to be, what could be refurbished, and and also at the same time, trying to pull together the money to do it. I mean, I was what was I was 20 years old when I started that project. So, and
Okay.
then I had it with me in from California. I transported it to New York. I mean, I had that bike, for 32 years. I
Wow.
sold it. I sold it a few years ago.
Hmm.
Um, some of the concerns, if I went for a ride and, I felt my phone vibrating and, over and over, and then, finally pull over to take a break. And I have all these missed calls from home
Hmm.
and what's going on? What's going on? The kids heard a siren and were worried that it might be for you.
Uh,
So, that kind of took the air out of it. But
hmm.
I did a TV pilot, another TV pilot, a year and a half ago or so, where the character is a biker and rides a Harley. So we
Hmm.
rented a Harley for me, and I got to spend, the better part of a day
Hmm.
riding a Harley again up in the mountains of Georgia,
Hmm.
the Blue Ridge Mountains. But, a lot of people, of course, I have my Harley Davidson sticker, bar and shield on the rear view of my truck
Nice.
or on the rear window of the truck.
Hmm.
But, anyone can do that. Not everyone has the
Wow.
Harley Davidson bar and shield on their arm. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
mine also has my kids' initials in there, GPD,
Hmm.
Garland Pearson Dalton. So, that's my core, Harleys and my kids.
That sounds like a good core to have, like, family and a machine and a Harley Davidson. Out of
Yeah,
out of
and what put
curiosity. Oh, sorry, on you go.
I'm sorry, I tend to do that because as simple as I am, I will kind of weave and
No, no, no. That's
but
this show. This is
what
all about that. Like, we go on many tangents. So hey, that's all
right
good.
on.
Now I was just gonna ask, out of curiosity, how long did it take you to build the actual Harley Davidson? So you started when you said you were 20. Did it take you like I don't
Take
know, year?
taking it apart
Mm-hmm.
took a long time, and then the next part was, being able to, afford parts for it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the motor is one thing I didn't touch because I'm not a trained mechanic, and I
Okay.
recognized that I needed to be able to ride the thing, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so the motor I had done by, a professional,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else, was just a matter of uh, learn on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't have equipment to be able to mount, the tires on the wheels.
Mm-hmm.
But once they were together, I was able to, put
Mm-hmm.
the wheels on the bike and all that. And the wiring was, pretty much done. And, wiring that I couldn't, figure out, then who needed it? I never put turn signals on the bike,
Spare parts. Who cares? Like, there's
Yeah.
always some spares, right?
Yeah. I mean, my bike was just a bad boy, and I didn't put turn signals on it. It was just a beautiful, and it was, what um the Fat Boys and all that are based on. It was a 1978
Hmm.
1200 FL shovel head, which the shovel head motor has a sound that you can't replicate
Hmm.
with, the modern bikes
Hmm.
with straight slash cut pipes. I mean, my bike was the fucking 4th of July. It
Nice.
was it was just an amazing bike. And I sold it to a guy who lives in Dallas, Texas.
Hmm.
And I told him one day I'm going to contact you and I'm going to, if I have the money, the FU money,
Hmm.
where I can just make you an offer that you can't refuse, I'm
Yeah.
going to have my bike back,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know, one day, maybe.
Hopefully that happens. No, that was awesome. Think I wow. A lot of things there I never suspected. Like, building the bike, that's definitely you don't meet a person every day who builds their own bikes. So my props.
Hey, and what put me on that was the fact that, I'm a simple guy. So maybe, back to the substance real
Mhm.
quick.
Okay, okay.
Maybe it was like my simple-minded mentality. It's like I saw yuck and
Mhm.
said yuck.
Yeah,
Overall yuck,
yeah. Hmm.
rather than just breaking it down by the beats. Like, it's funny that I could be talking about a moment in Streetcar
Hmm.
that was just so revolutionary to me. But, seeing a moment, in the substance, and it kind of just washed over me because by that point my switch had been a little turned off against it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So I was looking at it with tunnel vision, thinking, this is too much of a lot already. So, I do want to watch it again. And, I think we can put the bow on that conversation now that it
100%.
deserves a rewatch. But, speaking of women directors, how
Mm.
about Catherine Bigelow? The Hurt Locker,
Yes, that's a great one.
brilliant,
Hmm.
brilliant.
Hmm.
I mean, anytime I have this really cool broadcast system wherein I don't have basic cable or anything like that. I have internet and I subscribe to Netflix and Prime Video and I
Yeah.
have that's Hulu. I have that stuff.
Hmm.
Oh, speaking of subscription services and Billy Bob Thornton, have do you have access to Paramount Plus? Are you able to watch Landman?
Yes, I've heard of it. We do have it here in the UK. I haven't watched it yet, no, but I've heard of that show, and I hear it's pretty good.
It's very good.
All
It's
right.
very good. And Demi Moore is very good in
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And she plays John Hamm's wife,
Mm-hmm.
John Hamm's character's wife. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hope she does keep getting more and more roles because, she had me in St. Almost Fire. I mean,
Yeah.
she was just always something about her
Mm-hmm.
that was great. But uh, Landman is wonderful. Hurt Locker was dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No
Catherine
pun
Bigelow.
intended. No pun intended there.
Yeah. There really was no pun intended. Thanks for
Yep.
calling me out on that. So yes, I would like to, that would be cool doing, a movie. You asked like what my dream movie would be to do. I mean, listen, you do a movie with Tom Cruise and you're set, right?
I mean, I that's what I hear. That's what I
Yeah.
hear. Yep.
And a good buddy of mine, Eastside Morales,
Mm-hmm.
plays the bad guy in the latest Mission Impossibles, which was
Mm-hmm.
split into two installments, and they haven't
Yes.
released the second installment yet.
Coming this year. Yep. Yep.
But when Isai was telling me, yeah, I'm playing this role in, what's it called? Is it Ghost Protocol or something?
So the last one was the Dead Reckoning, and
Dead Reckoning. That's it.
now
Yeah.
the new one that's about to come out this year is Final Reckoning. It's no longer Dead Reckoning Part 2. They've changed this.
Got
Like
it.
they don't like the Dead Reckoning Part 1 anymore. It's just Dead Reckoning. And now
Got
the
it.
latest one will be Final Reckoning.
Final Reckoning.
Hmm.
And from what I've heard, it's the last Mission Impossible movie he's going to do.
That's, but it's been
Tom
like that
Cruise.
since, yeah, but it's been like that since Ghost Protocol in 2011. So, like,
Yeah,
I'll believe it
but
when
I
I
mean,
see it.
I, all the power to him. I mean, where he gets his energy and all
Yep.
that. But what is he, 62 or something now? Or,
Over 60, yeah, now, yeah.
there's only so much, falling out of buildings and helicopters that your body can take.
Hmm. And especially with, person like him who, famously does his own stunts, even though
Yeah,
everybody by everybody I mean insurance agencies hate him for that because
yeah,
I cannot even imagine if something were to happen to him. But no, it's insane. Yeah, he's gonna be 63. He's gonna turn
yeah.
63 this July.
Wow.
Wow. Yep.
So, and Matt Damon uh, does an interview. There's a great clip of an interview that Matt Damon did
Hmm.
about, talking with Tom Cruise.
Hmm.
And, he does an impression of Tom Cruise while he's, having the conversation. And he's saying, you should really watch it. You should search up Matt Damon, talks Tom Cruise
Hmm.
uh, do it and safety guy because the butt of it is that Tom Cruise was being told no, you're not doing this, it's too dangerous and da da da, and he's like, oh, I'm doing it, no you're not, and da da da. So what happened? So I get a new safety guy, right? So and that's the way he approaches it.
Hmm.
Rather than taking a no, he
Hmm.
just finds someone who'll tell him yes.
Yeah.
um so doing Although, from what I hear, I read something a while ago that Tom Cruise has one big rule. You're not allowed to run alongside him on camera.
Oh,
Like when
really?
these scenes where he does running, I mean, he's, you
He
know,
runs a lot.
he
Yes.
he's moving, right?
Yes.
He's
Yes.
moving. And for some reason, you're not, no one's allowed to run with him.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's because maybe it would bring the scene down because no one's going to run as well as he is
Hmm.
and be able to keep pace or whatnot.
Hmm.
Or what if he runs into the actor who happened to run track, in high school and college
Hmm.
and is going to be every bit as good as him.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's just one of those quirks
Hmm.
that I read a while ago that never left me. It's like, all right, I'd love to do a movie with Tom Cruise, and I'll just make sure that I never ask him if I can run in the scene with him.
I will be honest, I have never heard of that, but it kind of reminds me of that. What I heard of, there was a between speaking of when we just spoke about Fast and Furious, when The Rock joined the franchise and became a big mega ultra super duper hardcore action star. They had some sort of clause in both Vin Diesel and The Rock. They basically had to count punches because nobody wanted to be punched more than the other. So they had to have
Right.
equal amount of time they got punched. Because nobody wanted to be like, oh, I got punched 62 times, but hey, look at it, Vin Diesel. He got punched 64 times. So who's the tough guy now? And I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Like
And
you two
isn't
are like
that
jacked guys. You two are like a massive, like a macho man. And is that what you really are concerned about? Okay.
isn't that, just the definition of vanity right there? I mean, my goodness, I always say as an actor, you know what? Just be
Hmm.
grateful
Hmm.
that you get to do what you're doing.
Hmm.
Just be grateful. Be grateful and gracious
Hmm.
and show the people who appreciate what you do,
Hmm.
the fans, the viewers, when you have the opportunity to meet them, just show gratitude. I don't understand like that. Like I'm a again very simple and humble man. I don't see myself as anything special. I've had the opportunity in my life and over, a few decades now
Hmm.
to to be involved in a business that I always dreamed of as a kid of, being involved in. And on one side, I have a lot of trouble with attention. It's one of the reasons that one of the soap operas, the soap opera that the main one I was on, All My Children,
Mhm.
why I left because I was very, very, very popular on that show, but I had a hard time dealing with the popularity and getting chased through malls, surrounded, by police telling me, "Run, Matt, run," and and not being able to walk from the studio to my apartment. I don't deal with attention super well because I like a simple life. I mean, would I love the career of a Tom Cruise or a Brad Pitt?
Mhm.
My God, who wouldn't? But I don't know how I would deal with that level adoration and adulation. I don't know how because I like, it's cool, being able to walk into the grocery and if someone says, "Oh, hey, you're on Cobra Kai." Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I am. What's your name? Thank you for watching. And thank you for noticing me. Oh, I love your character. Thank you for making my character special to you.
Mhm.
But the idea of not being able to, go and, pick my, feel my own avocados, for my kids and pick my own bunch of bananas. I don't know that I'd handle that very well, having to, you
Mhm.
know, that if I wanted to do that, that I'd have to have, someone this big standing behind me to make sure that,
Yeah.
um, but anyway,
No, like one could say you are living, the best life because, you do what you are paid to do what you love, right? You've been doing it for your entire life, realistically. But you still, as you said, you still can go into a store. You still can go to a restaurant without being totally mobbed or like, hey, hey, that's this guy. Like, look at him, look at him, look at him.
right,
And I feel like that's like, in a way, best of that both worlds. Because like, like everybody, I think everybody is always had the dream. What if I was as big as Tom Cruise? Or what if my face was all the posters and billboards? But if you really think about it, it's like, would I be able to handle that? Would I be able to handle anything I do? Would be scrutinized. Every sentence you say would be, picked apart word by word. What did he mean when he said this? What did he mean when he did this? And then,
right,
you're just gonna get a coffee and like, why did he pick this coffee? What does he hate this coffee? Does he hate this? Like, it's
right,
just like many people, like, they see you and then or see a celebrity, and if they do something tiny bit out of the ordinary, they always like project anything they want onto that, and it's fascinating to me. So I feel like you kind of almost one in life in that way, where you do what absolutely love. You get paid for it, and you still enjoy, like, every once in a while you bump into a fan who's like, hey, I know you. You're a cool guy. And you're like, thanks.
yeah. I wouldn't mind. I'm not allergic to the idea of one more rung up the ladder, which would
Mm,
bring, you know, one higher level paycheck.
I see.
Let's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
let's be real here.
Mm,
I mean, I'd like a little more, I'll tell you what, the like I was saying, I hope that I'll have the opportunity to do this new video game that, I'm recording some stuff for, by tomorrow
mm,
because, I'm presenting my take on the character
mm,
and, they're going to be looking at a few different people's takes on it. And I hope I do get to be involved in it because I really love that medium.
mm, mm.
But my favorite medium of all has to be, sitcoms,
Okay.
half-hour shows,
Mm,
because you, what with sitcoms with live audience, you have 4 days of rehearsals to fine tune all the rewrites, all the jokes, and that, and then you tape two times
mm,
on show night. You tape the rehearsal and then you tape the show with dinner in between. and you have two different audiences for each one.
Hmm.
So you have an opportunity to, but it's very much like theater. You know right away if
If it
you didn't
works.
hit that note,
Yeah.
and if you didn't make it funny, they're going to rewrite that line and they may not give it to you to say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's that theater quality of it, of that instant response of the audience, the instant gratification
Hmm.
or the instant immolation.
Hmm.
You're either you know catching fire in a bad way or fire in a good way.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Either way, you're catching a fire, but it just depends on what kind of fire, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, whether you're on fire or whether you're going up in flames.
Well put. Very well put. See, we've talked a lot about a movie, so yeah, but I think that's a good thing to go into more of a TV show because I think you said off the mic that you're more comfortable with TV shows and like that medium, right?
I like the schedule
Okay.
more.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, I mean, listen, again, simple, practical guy. I like the idea of being able to, go do a table read.
Hmm.
For example, is, day one of rehearsals for a sitcom.
Hmm.
You go do the table read, you take a little break, you go do, onto the set, you do a little preliminary blocking, the table read, everyone's there, the studio and network executives, all the writers, the entire cast,
Hmm.
everyone's there. You have a room of 40 to 50 people listening to you read through the script for the first time. And then all the suits leave and you take a 15-20 minute break, maybe have some craft services or whatnot. And then you go onto the set and you start doing some preliminary blocking and ideas. All right, so this scene we're thinking the director is talking through his vision of who's where,
Hmm.
and then you do a couple of hours of that, and then you're done for the day. And in my perfect world, it's happening during daylight savings,
Yeah.
so I'm going to play 18 holes of golf. You know.
Hmm.
And then you're back the next day and you start getting into more refined blocking, camera blocking. And then, you know, uh, the fourth day, you're doing a full dress rehearsal for the network and studio executives.
Hmm.
And then they're giving their notes. And then, the next day, you're showing up a few hours early to, incorporate the notes and do final, run-throughs. And then, boom, you tape it once, and then you have dinner, and then you tape it again with a fresh audience. So that's the dream schedule right there.
Yeah. No, I get
With
I get you.
that, with that dream as an actor, audience gratification or
Hmm.
feedback.
Yeah.
So yes, I absolutely love doing sitcoms, and I did several of them
Hmm.
where I was, a series regular.
Hmm.
Um, they're just not as popular anymore. Things have really segued, gone to the 30-minute
Hmm.
single cameras, sometimes two cameras.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really gone to, a non-audience, live audience, format, which is cool. Again, I just did one of those not too long, a few months ago
Hmm.
where Big Daddy Kane. Do you know,
Hmm.
do you know that name, the rapper?
Not. I don't think I'm familiar. Maybe I know one of his songs.
Yeah,
That would kind
you
of
you would
usually
you
happens.
would if you look up Big Daddy Kane.
Okay.
Very very famous
Hmm.
New York rapper, and this show picks up after the heyday of being a famous rapper, and he's divorced with a couple of kids, and he's trying to navigate regular life
Hmm.
and tackle like his next thing, what he really wants to do, what he loves to do is cook and open a restaurant.
Hmm.
And he has so he's trying to navigate married slash divorced life
Hmm.
and being a dad to teens that he wasn't always maybe fully present for, but he still has his best friend who was with him during the heyday,
See.
and is still his best friend, and that's me. I
Ah.
play the best friend role, and That's what I was talking. That's the show I was talking about, where, in trying to figure out why are these guys still best friends?
Hmm.
The rap days are not there. I was like his best friend slash, number two guy, number one guy, and with him, his one man crew, as it
Hmm.
were.
Yeah.
But those days are over. So why are they still best friends? Especially, my character. What am I doing with my life? I'm a garbage man. I'm
Hmm.
riding on the back of a garbage truck all day.
Hmm.
So if he still has plenty of money and is living a certain life in a certain beautiful modern house and everything,
Hmm.
and I am riding the back of a garbage truck every day, how are our lives still
Yeah, like
relevant
crossing. Yeah, like crossing
to each
streams and
other?
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so I had to find that
Hmm.
in the writing. And I had to, you know, in talking with the writer who I've done another movie with a couple of years ago. And we'll get to it because, you're a cinephile, you love the
Hmm.
movie life. So we'll get
Hmm.
back to a movie I did not too long ago so that we have some,
Yeah, of course, of course.
besides the Lisa movie. We, I had to, in talking with the writer and the director, I pitched them
Hmm.
line ideas and, additions
Hmm.
and told them why. Why am I going to say something like this so that the audience will understand why they're still friends?
Hmm.
Because there's this type of guy humor
Hmm.
that neither of them can do without, that they need each other in their lives. And, so that I can also provide those like shake his head moments for Big Daddy Kane's character, where he's like, oh my God, really, but in a loving way.
Hmm.
So I really felt like, for example, um, I call him up. I call him up and I say, hey, is your family there yet? Because they're supposed to, he's going to have his kids staying with him.
Hmm.
Are the kids there yet? No, half an hour away. Perfect. I'm outside. I'm coming in to use your crapper, right?
Hmm.
So I go in. I'm wearing my headphones from riding on the back of the garbage truck. I rush in the door. He's cooking, whatever. He's doing his thing, and I say, "I won't be long. I promise," or whatever I say, and then I disappear into the bathroom, and I'm just in the bathroom, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Meanwhile, the family shows up early, and they're talking and having these conversations. Now, the reason I'm wearing my headphones is I had to say that also. I had to, mention because the next line as scripted when you see me is, "Oh, hey family, you're early."
Yeah.
Now, how would I not know that if I'm right there in the hallway bathroom? How would I
Hmm.
not hear this?
Hmm.
So I told them, guys, I need to be wearing headphones so that, I'm listening to my music or whatever in the crapper and I have no idea that the family's there. And
Hmm.
it's going to set up. I'm going to walk out of the bathroom, and here's the first added line. I'm not looking, I'm buckling up my pants, and I'm walking out of the bathroom saying, I just murdered that toilet. And looking up and realizing the family's there
Hmm.
and taking off, the headphones saying, You're early to the family.
Yeah.
Now, what did those additions just create? It created that guy banter of like, I murdered
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
toilet.
Hmm.
You don't get to hear stuff like that very often
Hmm.
on TV. You don't just one line where I'm looking at him and he's looking at me like, what the fuck? And having to like downplay that moment, like instead of saying sorry guys, whatever, it's like blaming them. It's like, you're
Yeah.
early.
As if they are intruding in their own house. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then, going through the rest of the scene and then on my way out, stopping and whispering in his ear saying, seriously, you're gonna need crime scene tape on that bathroom. You know,
Hmm.
that's just and letting him have another of those moments like, oh my God, but those two lines alone absolutely round out their relationship.
Hmm.
And, you know, the writer and the director and the producers recognizing that and saying, yes, do that. We need that.
Yeah.
um, that's what's really gratifying, and having that freedom to say what if,
Hmm.
and and not just, and always, anytime I have something to, that I think might be a good audition, I
Hmm.
don't sit there and I say right off the bat, hey, I have plenty of lines in this project. I don't need more.
Hmm.
The question is, does the project need something more to round out things and build up relationships?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that is yes, then we're going to roll with it. And if
Hmm.
the answer to that is no, okay,
Yeah.
roll with what you originally planned. I'm not a needy guy. I
Hmm.
just want to be, you chose me for a reason.
Hmm.
And if I have an idea that I think might bring value,
Hmm.
as long as it's heard, that's all. Again, you hired me, you offered me this role
Hmm.
for a reason. You think I'm going to bring something interesting to it. So here's an idea that I think it might be interesting. And if it doesn't fit the vision, cool. Thanks for listening. Let's
Hmm.
move on. What's next? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
No, 100%. Like, obviously, because yeah, you're trying to understand your character, but also you're trying to improve or uplift the show you're on. Because obviously, if the show works, hey, you're gonna be busy for next couple of years. So you just trying to make
Yes.
it as good as you can. Makes total
One
sense.
1,000,000%. It's
Hmm.
time to have, it's time to be a series regular again. That's, that's been missing from my life. I mean, the Cobra Kai gig has been wonderful, but
Hmm.
let's face it, except for the final season, it's one episode per season.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, you know, go in, but the brilliance of what they do, and what has meant so much to me in that role is that they always use my scenes with Johnny to kind of set the stage for what's going to happen next in his storyline.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, I always have some kind of responsibility
Hmm.
for his next moves
Hmm.
and the show's through lines in the story. Um, but it's time to be a series regular again. I love that.
Hmm.
Do I love films? Who, as a kid, didn't want to be a movie star?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but for what reasons?
Yeah.
Again, I was left with that dream of being that little boy on a pony riding off into a sunset.
Hmm.
Would it be fun to be walking that enormous red carpet swathed staircase at the Cannes Film Festival?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that would be exciting. But again, for my personality itself, it would be a little bit intimidating. But heck, if I were walking between, or next to Brad Pitt and Quentin Tarantino, I'd make it work.
I'm sure you could. Like I'm sure you
I,
would.
I
Hundred
I'd
percent.
figure it out.
Hundred
I'd
percent.
figure out a way to do it. I'd make that sacrifice, Luke. I'd
Of
make that
course.
sacrifice.
Of course. Like it's not your preferred way to spend your time, but hey, you will make do. You will try to do your acting bit, and you will act like you want to be there, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And people listening can't see how big I'm smiling and
No.
being sarcastic about it.
No. Yeah. Of
But
course.
yeah, we'd figure out a way to get through that
100%.
awful, awful day.
Do you have a lot of chances or a lot of time to actually watch some TV shows or sitcoms? You mentioned that you love sitcoms. Do you have enough or some time to even watch some sitcoms lately?
Uh, I'll tell you what my favorite comedy
Hmm.
shows are. Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Nice. Yep.
and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Great choices.
I absolutely love. those shows because they are so, oh my God, did they just say that type of shows?
Yep, especially It's Always Sunny. It's like
Yeah,
horrible people doing horrible stuff, and most of the time kind of getting away with it. And
yeah.
it's frustrating, but it's also funny.
But you still love them.
Exactly.
That's, you still love them. And,
Hmm.
I've always loved playing the character you love to hate,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Hmm.
these are characters, it's just so outlandish and look where they've gone from there. I mean, she has a new show called High Potential.
Yes.
It's kind of like a detective sleuthing
Hmm.
show,
Hmm.
but it's very fluffy.
Hmm.
It's not like a heavy crime drama. It's a fluffy show. It's good ABC network TV entertainment.
Hmm. Hmm.
He Rob McElhaney, however you say it,
Hmm.
McElhaney. He has a show called Mythic Quest. Have
Yes.
you heard of that?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's on Apple TV.
Yes. Yes.
And I've been watching that too, and that's really, he- he's very much the same as he is on Sunny in Philadelphia,
Hmm.
but it works really well for this character because, now he is like, like rich and famous and arrogant and everything, and now the way he speaks is almost more whimsical than just being a dick.
Yeah.
Um, but I've enjoyed that too.
Hmm.
But
And of course, he
flat out,
co-hosts, co-owns the Wrexham Football Club with the Ryan Reynolds. So, and they made him, documentary kind of TV show about that as well.
what's it called? Welcome to Wrexham or something
Yes,
like that.
yes.
I haven't seen it. And we're a soccer family. Both my boys play soccer. I played soccer when I was younger, and
Hmm.
you know, uh, had been offered a scholarship to play goalie in
Wow.
college. Um, but I didn't do it,
Hmm.
because in all my brilliance, I wanted to be an actor. And I also injured my knee pretty badly. But I never for a moment thought, well, if I go do that and play college and, a goalie in college, and then, end up, as a dual citizen, which I am,
Hmm.
end up in Italy driving Ferraris on the Amalfi Coast playing, for an Italian team, that stuff never crossed my mind at the time. I was thinking, I'm an actor. I'm going to
Hmm.
be a famous, not like the epitome of famous, but I'm going to be, a famously known working actor for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
That's There are different levels of fame,
Hmm. Hmm.
obviously. So that's what I did. But back to the comedy shows. My favorite are Sunny in Philadelphia and
Hmm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
So and okay, so see, like we've talked some movies, like and you who you'd want to work for, like work with, like Quentin, Rob Zemeckis, all those guys. So as far as like TV shows, not necessarily even sitcoms, but obviously we can go sitcoms. Is there somebody who you would love to work with, or excites you right now? Like, oh yeah, this show is amazing. I wish I could go be a guest star on this show, or I would love to work with that person.
Yeah, I would love to work on Landman with
Mm,
Billy Bob.
yeah, yeah.
I would love to do it. It's a really, really good show.
Hmm.
There's so many. I mean, they're super high profile shows that, a lot of people would say, oh my God, it's Reacher. You got to go do Reacher. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
but how would I fit into a show like that? I'm not,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's the way I look at,
Yeah.
things. It's like if they came to me and said, yeah, we had this idea, we'd really, you're going to have three lines. It's like, well, it's not going to be very substantial. It's not going to be very gratifying.
Hmm.
Is it a crazy paycheck? I mean, if it's a crazy paycheck, then, some things are worth doing. But
Hmm.
if it's a co-star and, you're talking literally one, two, three lines, and, you're not going to, it's going to take you out of the potential for at some point down the line being a more substantial role in the show.
Hmm.
then, sometimes you have to say no.
Hmm.
But, shows that I would love to be like a part of on a consistent basis. Landman,
Hmm.
uh, absolutely. Mythic Quest would be a lot of fun,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
Severance, I don't get Severance all
Hmm.
that much. I've watched it, but I don't like binge watch it because I'm not so enamored with it that I have to, and again, I wouldn't know how to fit into that
Hmm.
show, but who knows? There's just so much good television
Hmm.
these days. Oh, um, Amazon show, with, and she just won an Academy Award, but she has the TV show. What's it called? Lioness?
Oh, Linus. Yeah, Zoe Saldana. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's dynamite, and I really like that show. I could see
Hmm.
myself, you know, becoming a team member of
Hmm.
hers, on that show. Because, I may not be the youngest team member, but hey, I still got something there going.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he could be the, like the, hey, I've been through some shit. I'll tell you what's up. Just listen to me.
Exactly.
Like, you bring not only the guns, but you bring the expertise, just the
Right.
experience.
Exactly. I
No,
mean, I like shows that have gravity to them.
hmm. Hmm.
Um, it's funny talking about Severance. I'm still not sure why it's such a darling, other than, the people involved in it.
Hmm.
I mean, you have Ben Stiller directing a lot of the episodes. You have, a lot of hubbub about, the set and, the one takes and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And it's an interesting concept, but I'm still not sure
Hmm.
what makes it so special,
Yeah.
you know. I'll tell you what show just premiered
Tell
that
me.
is fantastic. Uh, it's also on Apple.
Hmm.
The Studio.
I've been hearing about this ever since it premiered from different people, how great that show is. So tell me about it. What makes it special for you?
Because it's so accurate
Mm,
and it's so, I almost referenced it earlier when you were talking about originality
hmm.
in
Hmm.
movies, and it would be great to be able to just, go to someone and say, look, all I need is $10 million. Here's the idea. It's going to connect,
Hmm.
it's going to strike a chord with people
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
have people be like, okay, here's the money.
Hmm.
Rather than like the studio, it makes a giant joke out of that because like Bryan Cranston plays a studio head, right?
Hmm.
And and they're the corporate boss, the big kahuna.
Yeah.
And Seth Rogen plays the new head of the studio, and he has to present his next big film, and he's got Martin Scorsese coming to
Hmm.
him saying, I want to make this movie. It's something I've wanted to make for years and years, and it's going to be my last movie. It's going to
Hmm.
be my last one."
Yeah.
And Seth Rogen's character is like, yes, because he's a movie file, he's a cinephile, he's a
Yeah.
lover of the art, and that's his dream right there. He's going to say yes to Marty Scorsese.
Hmm. Hmm.
But what corporate wants, they are locking down the IP rights to Kool-Aid, and they want to make the Kool-Aid movie.
Ah.
And Seth Rogen's like, what you mean with like the big jug, the pitcher, coming through walls?
Hmm.
Yes, it's a home run, it's a blah 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 blah. And we're going to have the different Kool-Aid family members. The kids will be grape and
Yeah.
grape and cherry or whatever, orange.
Hmm.
So when Scorsese pitches him, he now he's locked into making a movie about Kool-Aid, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, or, as the new studio head, he's going to get fired. So he has to try to put a spin on him. Scorsese, he wants to make a movie of all things about Jonestown. And the mass suicide at Jonestown,
Hmm.
and Seth Rogen says, "Wait, so technically this movie has something to do with Kool-Aid, right? That would be a good title, wouldn't it?" And Scorsese's like, Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid. Yeah, yeah, that's a great movie. That's a great title. Da, da, da. And then, things don't work out as it would. But,
Yeah.
just the the how silly the business can be
Hmm.
and accurate and how desperate this guy is to belong within the system.
Hmm.
And it's really damn good. And it drives me nuts that I don't have the option of binge watching it because they're releasing it,
Weekly, right?
an episode per week.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's my latest favorite show right there.
I definitely will have to check it out because yeah, you are like the sixth person maybe I hear, from about this show specifically and how great it is, how funny it is. And then, that any especially like if you're a cinephile, you will absolutely adore this show.
Yeah,
So I no, I get it. Again, it's on my ever-growing watch list. It's just there's
yeah,
so many things to watch. For example, you mentioned Severance. My girlfriend and I, we are watching it, and we are 2 episodes from finishing season one, and not even season two. We've
right.
only started a couple of weeks ago, and for my girlfriend, it is a bit too much because it's quite tense show. So she cannot binge it. She cannot do more than like a few episodes at a time. So we watch like two or three, then we stop for like a week, and then we go back to it. But yeah, right now we're binging It's Always Sunny. Like as you mentioned, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We're almost there, like season 14. So like, so like only two
Wow.
more seasons. And that's gonna be us or caught up with that show because obviously it's still airing. So yeah. But no, this is yeah, that's no, I need to get is it a studio?
The studio.
Yeah, I need
Yeah.
to get it. I need to give it a shot because I've heard so many people talk about that and just singing praises about that. So that's awesome.
And,
So, mhm,
because it's not quite bingeable yet, I mean, just maybe watch the first episode
mhm,
just
mhm,
so you get the flavor for it, because then it will, if you do that,
mhm,
it will move up that list of yours very quickly
100%. No, like I hear good things about it.
because
So
you're a
like,
cinephile and
yes,
you would understand and love him,
mhm,
being a hapless cinephile whose dream it is to be in this job, and
mhm,
he wants to make movies that matter,
mhm, mhm.
and it's really good. It's so good.
No, I cannot wait to check it out. Speaking of movies, because obviously this podcast is kind of all over the place, so I've, abandoned any kind of template at the start. So I really like this free-flowing conversation. But if I were to ask you, what do you think is your favorite movie decade for movies specifically, would you have one?
That's a really interesting question
Mm,
because there was so many good, entertaining movies like in the 70s.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and I was a kid, so I was, wrapped, what's the word? Picked up and floated away on the wind of some of these movies
Yeah.
that going back and watching them later, uh like the Rocky, things.
Mm-hmm.
The 80s, I mean, what do you have? You had like was that the Breakfast Club,
Yes.
that was very relevant for an entire generation, and even, older
Mm-hmm.
generations could remember that angst and everything. So, the John Hughes
Yes.
era was
Yes.
was powerful. The 90s, I don't know. I mean, I didn't, to be honest, I didn't see very many movies
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s because I was so busy always on a TV set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I think there's some good stuff happening now. I mean, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there's always good stuff happening, but there's always a lot of, garbage, So you just, for me, I think every decade has something to offer
Hmm.
to everyone.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of finding it. If, and that's key because the way the business turned over the last 20, 25, 30 years even, where it all became about marketing
Hmm.
and as many theaters and lunch boxes as possible, that you had to look a little more for the movie that was going to really resonate with you.
Hmm.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I can't pinpoint a favorite decade. I can say, completely honestly that every decade has had something really good to offer if you were able to find it without
Like
it having it shoved in your face.
100%. Like, there's so many good things. Even like now, like as you mentioned, like 2010s, even we are halfway through this decade, which is insane.
I know,
I don't understand how it's 2025 already. That's I know. I that scares me.
I know.
Just yeah, but no, like even now, like we are halfway through this decade, and we've already had some amazing movies, and also TV shows. Like as you mentioned, the quality is still there. There's a lot of not so great things being produced, whether it's movies or TV shows. But that's why you have so many people like myself talking about movies, talking about TV shows, and you just need to find somebody who you trust and like, oh, this person says this movie is great. I'll check it out. Or this TV show is great. And yeah, but many times something just goes straight to streaming and it just slips through the cracks. And then many will discover it later on and say, hey, this movie that came out 5 years ago, I don't hear anybody talk about, but it's awesome. It's fucking great. And I'm just, yeah, I love to find these like tinier movies. There's like these like not necessarily like indie, but something that might have slipped through the cracks, and like, oh yeah, this is fucking awesome, and everybody should be talking about that.
Yeah, agreed. But that brings me back to though, across, the last 3 decades
Hmm.
or 2 decades at least, I anytime I'm going through my system allows me access to movie and TV channels from everywhere in the world. You
Nice.
know, Eh, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And not that I wouldn't have a need for it, but scrolling through all the different countries, everything from India to Punjabi to UK, I can to Italy, I can watch any programming from anywhere in the world.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it also gives me access to all the movies, for the last several years.
Hmm.
Um, that came out theatrically, and I can't search it by title. I have to scroll through hundreds of video pages of titles,
Ah, okay.
but to find them, but I can find, some interesting stuff.
Hmm.
But still, anytime that I'm scanning just, the nightly programming,
Hmm.
if I come across Forrest Gump, I will always leave it there. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen that movie
Hmm.
either start to finish or just in parts.
Yeah.
We're talking hundreds
Hmm.
because I really feel it is the perfect film. And look at the career that Tom Hanks has. I mean, he's done unbelievable work in unbelievable projects. Even Castaway,
Hmm.
I thought was dynamite. And it took me a while, interestingly enough, to realize that there's no movie or no music in the movie
Hmm.
until, later. The whole time, it's just him and his thoughts and his voice and nature. You
Hmm.
never hear, there's no music,
Hmm.
which adds to that isolation, that feeling of being there isolated with them. But look at his career, from what was it called? Bosom Buddies or something,
Yep.
the
Yep.
the sitcom that he was on. Look what he did, and yet if you see him in a store,
Hmm.
he can, at least as far as I imagine, he can still live the life that I would want to be able to live while still having that level of success.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
he's he's not Tom Cruise, he's not Brad Pitt, he's not going to be as hounded. He may be Tom, may get the thumbs up,
Yep.
you know, but he's not going to be swarmed. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
um that is something that's a career I wouldn't mind, you know, doing that level of projects
Hmm.
and still be able to just be Matt. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's a great example of like, even the shades of your career, like, as you said, oh, I start in this movie. I wish to had it removed, but hey, it's there. What did I do? He was for a long time like a purely comedic actor. It wasn't until 90s he became a dramatic actor, and since then he's done like maybe one or two actual proper just full-on comedies. But he started as a comedy guy. He was Tom Hanks, the funny guy. Yeah, 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 and yeah, I kind of know him. And then 90s hit, and Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, and then we just like roll after roll, Catch Me If You Can, Castaway, all those, like serious movies, and he's a serious actor. And yeah, every once in a while, I wish he would just go back to his roots and like, because I still think he is funny. Like, I watched The Larry Crown the other day. I thought it was a solid movie, and I thought he's charming. He's got that charisma that like even though it's Tom Hanks, it's like one of the A-listers. He still feels like,
Right.
hey, this could be your neighbor, this could be your buddy, just down the road. It's like, hey, Tom. It's just, he seems approachable.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean that would be really good. And really what started his movie career? I mean, it wasn't was it Splash or Big?
It was Splash. I think like Splash was definitely before Big.
Okay.
Let me triple check myself, but I am
Uh,
100% sure, or sorry, 99% sure, because Splash was like 1984, which and Big was 88. Yes,
There you go. So,
and yeah.
Big was unique in that, you got to see his comedic stuff, but it also, there were so many moments where you believed him
Hmm.
as this kid, and
Hmm.
you saw that, vulnerability that you might see later in something like, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
that gravitas, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so yeah, what a heck of a career he's had. I always have likened my career to, George Clooney, how many shows he had
Yep. Yep.
that, you
ER.
know,
You know.
my career was I always likened it to Clooney without getting the ER.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because he had so many shows that lasted one season or just, TV pilots that didn't go to series. Very much the same thing. I've had what, five series of
Hmm.
one season each,
Hmm.
and several pilots that could have and should have been big hits, but a network president changed for that season, and they decided we're not going to go with this. We're going in a different direction
Hmm.
when they were being handed a sure thing.
Hmm.
For example, a pilot I did was a spin-off that was going to take the place of Married with Children's time slot the following season.
Ah.
And it was the anti-Friends. It was called Enemies. And you can actually find it, you can actually watch it on YouTube.
Hmm.
You know, an actress named Nicole Eggert and I were basically a young Alan Peg Bundy,
I see.
and we had roommates, and it was six younger people. It
Hmm.
was the anti-Friends. We made fun of the show Friends on the show.
Ah.
um, and it was really good, and it was so perfectly timed with the popularity taking off of Friends,
Hmm.
and it was Fox, and Married was going off the air the following year, and we were created to replace Married with Children. But a new network president came in from another network, and the idea was to class up Fox. Well, so get we didn't get the time in the sunshine,
Mm.
and the shows that they did pick went away after 4 episodes or whatever. And that was a big missed opportunity. That would have been the big show for Fox the next year.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Fox, went on to, add dramas and everything to their schedule. And, they are a huge entity,
Hmm.
except for their news department, which is bullshit. But,
Yeah.
you know, they're, uh, again, that was one of those what ifs. But hey, if that had happened, I don't have my kids today. So, you take it as it comes. But
And also, nobody
Clooney,
says it's not gonna happen, maybe next week or next month. Nowadays, with streaming services and with all the other things around it, you never know. That's the beauty of your business. I would imagine, you know, you never know when you're gonna get that one script that might actually change the entirety of your life. You never, and just because it didn't happen in the 90s, maybe it'll happen, in 2 months where you land that script and it's like, hey, seems all right, let's do it, and suddenly it takes off and you'll be the next big sensation. Hey.
who knows? I mean, that's that's the thing with Hollywood. I mean, there's always that anything is possible
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as long as, the right people with the right mindset are the ones in charge of making that decision.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for all I know, the TV pilot, with Big Daddy Kane,
Mm-hmm.
it's for all I know, that's going to end up on the air
Mm-hmm.
and be a series, and I'll be a series regular, and that's what I love, that obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows how long that would run? You never know. I was actually on an episode of ER, so that kind of ties together my
Mm-hmm.
Clooney thing.
I've noticed,
uh,
yeah. Yeah.
and for years, it's fun to play a character that is remembered for certain things,
Mm-hmm.
even if you were only seen one time,
Mm-hmm.
because my character had the hiccups that
Ah.
couldn't stop. And I would literally be walking through an airport and, hey, you're the hiccup guy, So it's
Mm-hmm.
fun to know that in some small way you made a difference. I mean, I'm not out there curing, communicable diseases or anything, or genetic, I'm not a genetic scientist or
Mm-hmm.
anything, but how can I help people in my small way? I can make them laugh when they
Mm-hmm.
need a laugh
Mm-hmm.
or cry when they need to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can make them remember maybe what I did, that gave them that moment. So,
Yeah.
that's a big satisfaction I get out of acting, is that in my own little, small, not all that important way,
Mm-hmm.
I can make people feel something.
And I think, as we've all learned, especially during the pandemic, without this kind of, art, without that entertainment, many of us would have had a much rougher time doing it. So I can only thank you and people like you that keep on making, whether it's TV shows, movies, or video games that, will entertain us for decades to come. And I cannot even think of a better ending for this. So, Matt, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for your time. I'm not gonna keep you any longer because you've been gracious enough and answered all of my questions. So I do appreciate you. Before we say
Questions you
goodbye,
didn't even know you had, right?
I know, yeah, yeah, and again, but it's a different style of this show. I'll, because there's usually a structure, but I do like this free-flowing conversations. So hey, I'm not complaining. So before we say goodbye, do you have a question or two for me?
No, I would
Hmm?
just um, want to tell you I appreciate what you do. And I appreciate the fact that you care so much about this business, and that,
Hmm.
you're able to approach it as a cinephile and as, someone who loves the business, but also be able to, flip that switch and be the objective guy. And let's find out a little bit more about what makes different cogs in the wheel
Hmm. Hmm.
turn,
Yeah.
and see what makes some of these people tick. So, I appreciate the interest that you have, not just in the business, but in the people involved with it. So thank you, Luke.
Oh, not a problem. And again, it's people like yourself who make that business, and I love talking to anybody, any kind of people. And and it's always a blast to have somebody who's actually directly involved with the business. So it's not every day I get to speak to somebody like that. So genuinely, thank you. Obviously, if people enjoy this conversation, do you have a social media, where they could follow you directly, or some sort of projects they should be on a lookout for you?
Well, when I talk about I talk about projects when I have something to talk about on
Hmm.
social media. So on Instagram,
Hmm.
I am Cobra Kai Pawn Guy.
Okay.
On TikTok, I'm the same.
Hmm.
On Facebook, I'm Matt Borlenghi.
Okay.
Uh, on Blue Sky, I'm Cobra Kai Pawn Guy. Threads, the same.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't do X. I enjoyed it a little bit when it was Twitter, but then it
Yeah.
became something completely different. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I I think the wrong part of the world needs X in their lives.
Agreed. Agreed. No, okay. Those and any projects you wanna pimp out, quote unquote, and
Yes,
that should be we can be on the lookout for.
yes. I'm not sure of when the release date is
Hmm.
set for, but a film I did called 90 Days Past Due.
Hmm.
Um, that's actually where I'm, established the relationship with the writer of the Big Daddy Kane show.
Hmm.
Oh, Big Daddy's show, that's called Daddy's Place.
Okay.
So, when there's something to talk about with that, it's Daddy's Place. But 90 Days Past Due stars Jasmine Guy
Hmm.
uh, and puts me back together with my buddy David from Married with Children,
Mm.
um, Bud Bundy, you know,
Nice.
and Faustino. I can't believe it
Mm.
took me that long to remember. And he's my buddy, David Faustino. I had to think, wait, I'm Italian. His last name's Italian. How am I not remembering this? I talk to him all the time.
Hmm.
But,
Hmm.
sometimes you have those moments where you have to
Of course.
try.
Yeah, I got it.
But
Yes.
David and I had a blast on this movie, 90 Days Past Due.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Jasmine Guy she's a hoot. So I'm not sure of the release date, but I know it's coming up soon because I've been hearing whispers about, it's getting ready for release.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's going to be theatrical or straight to streaming. I don't know. But 90 Days Past Due is an entertaining movie, should be.
Hmm. Hmm.
And uh, look out for Daddy's Place and another pilot I did called Townsend that we haven't even shopped yet,
Hmm.
but that's pretty good.
Hmm.
But my biggest project to talk about or even to think about these days is just trying to be a good dad.
That's the most worthy project of all, I guess. Yeah, yeah. That's very up there.
All
I'm
it
I'm guessing. Yeah.
all it takes to be a father is a sperm,
Hmm.
but to be a dad, I've been better at it than at certain times than I have at others.
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I can admit that. So really, I'm just trying to be a good dad and, be present for my kids.
Hmm.
And that's what it's about. I mean, I don't go out. I don't drink alcohol. I don't, and, maybe I should get out there more as an actor.
Hmm.
Maybe I should attend more things, but I'm a homebody. What can I say? You know, I
Yeah.
like to be on the couch after the kids' bedtimes. I like watching something on
Hmm.
TV like Landman or
Yeah.
the studio. You must. That's how we're going to end this. You promising that you'll watch at least the first episode of the studio in the next few days
I
so
will.
that you can get that flavor.
No,
And
I
that
will.
will be
Yes, I 100% will. I guarantee you. I guarantee
all right.
you.
Cool.
No,
All right.
honestly, thank you so much for your time. I have, enjoyed it. I've enjoyed a lot of it. So thank you so much for as far as myself goes, as always, in movies lost on Letterboxd, lostinmovies.co.uk, which is my blog, or here every other Friday. This podcast is part of SPDM Crew Media. Special thanks goes to Highflyer Creative for designing my logo. To see what else is happening, visit highflyercreative.com. And until next time, bye bye.